Okay, in the last video we covered why the British gave up their mandate of Palestine, because it just became too untenable. They had 100,000 British soldiers having to deal with a conflict between 600,000 Jews and 1.2 million Arabs, and their morale was also shot due to the various attacks that were successful against them by the Jewish groups. And therefore, the mandate is given over to the United Nations, and now it's for the nations of the world to come up with a plan. So they come up with a plan. It's called the partition plan. And the idea simply is they're going to divide the land based on the majority presence. Who's ever living more concentrated in certain areas will get that part of the land to be the basis of their country, which sounds pretty reasonable, except when you take a look at the map, you see it's going to be a very difficult situation. Let's take a look at the map right now. So here are the borders according to the partition plan. The purple areas are the Arab areas. So you have the section up to the north, this healthy midsection of the land. The blue areas, that's Jerusalem, which is meant to be a international city. And then they have this section along the coast down over here to Gaza. The Jews will have this section up to the northeast. This is the Sea of Galilee, and this is Tiberias over here. And then they're going to get this coastal area from Tel Aviv up to Haifa. And then they get the southern part of the country, which is the Negev desert. But as you can see, it's a very difficult situation to be able to maintain sovereignty and control and security, most importantly, when you have parts of lands that are connected by little bitty, tracts of land, basically. But that's the partition plan, and that's what the UN had come up with. So on November 29th, 1947, the nations of the world vote on the partition plan. 33 countries say yes to the idea. 13 Arab countries say no, and 11 countries abstain. Britain was one of the countries which also abstained. And therefore, it was decided that on May 15th, 1948, that's when the partition plan would actually come into effect, which is about half a year after the vote itself. So what was the reaction to the partition plan? Well, in a nutshell, the Jews accepted the plan, the Arabs rejected. The very next day, riots begin against the Jews, and unfortunately, Arabs from other countries were volunteering to join in those riots and fight. The British themselves, they decided not to help implement at all the plan, so they're not going to be participants in any which way. In fact, they encouraged Jordan to take over the areas that were going to be the Arab majority parts. And what happens is the king of Jordan not only wants those areas, he decides he wants Jerusalem as well. And the British are not going to do anything to stop the military invasion, so they are just going to be pulling out. As a result, over 1,000 Jews were murdered during that time in various riots. Intense battles ensue. One of the most famous ones was the road to Jerusalem, because the community there was being cut off. You have to climb up into the hills to get to Jerusalem, and the Arabs had the superior position to shoot down on the Jews. It was very difficult. Eventually, at one point, the head of the Arab forces is killed in April, and the Arabs start to give up their position around Jerusalem so that the Jews can get access to help the Jews in the city survive and get their supplies. Eventually, the day before the partition plan is to be carried out, on May 14th, the British lower their flag. And on that very same day, the flag of Israel is raised. Ben Gurion reads the Declaration of Independence. And for the first time, close to 2,000 years after the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem by the Romans, Jews are celebrating as they now have sovereignty once again in their land. But the celebrations are going to last long, because we're going to have war, the War of Independence, which is going to last for 13 months. As Israel is now going to have to take on, right from its very inception, 5 neighboring Arab armies. Before we conclude this section, I just want to talk about the flag of Israel and its meaning. The colors of the flag, the white and the blue, the white represents newness and purity. The blue represents the color of heaven. The stripes, the 2 stripes, represent the stripes of a prayer shawl, the traditional prayer shawl, because clearly the way we've succeeded to this point is due to the successful transmission of our tradition, and of course, a result of so many prayers through the years. And the star represents the Star of David. So we have Britain with 100,000 soldiers who are tired and fed up and demoralized by the whole situation there. So they give up the mandate to the United Nations. They come with a partition plan. They can divide the land based on the majority presence. When there's the vote, 33 say yes, 13 no, 11 abstain. The plan is to be carried out on May 15th, 1948. The Jews accept the plan overall. The Arabs reject it. The riots begin, and they're joined by other Arabs from other countries who are going to fight along with them. The British decide not to do anything. They're not going to help implement it at all. They encourage Jordan to take over the Arab areas, and they're not going to stop any military invasion. So the Jews are really going to be very vulnerable. And as a result, over 1,000 Jews are murdered in various riots and attacks. There are a lot of battles ensue. Eventually, the head of the Arab forces is killed. When the British eventually lower their flag on May 14th, 1948, the Jewish flag is on that same day. Ben Gurion reads the Declaration of Independence, and the Jews celebrate sovereignty in their land after close to 2,000 years being in exile.